Thank you so much for joining us as we begin our training on understanding yourself so that you can understand others. In this session, we're going to look at the biblical basis for this topic, because we're not just going to talk about emotions from a what we call secular humanistic perspective, but we're also going to talk about the biblical understanding of emotions. And so as we get into this, it's just really important to understand why understanding emotions is important. First, everyone has emotions. Now, you may not see everyone express their emotions externally, right? Some people are kind of like a firework that when they get upset, you see it. And it can be overwhelming, in fact. And usually it's when they're upset, but it can also be when they're really happy. And you see them kind of going through life, but then one day they're sad, but then one day they're happy, and you can see it on their face. Other people, though, they don't show it. They tend to process internally, and then when they do, if they do, talk about the emotion, it'll sound very logical. Well, I was experiencing this feeling, and I wanted to share the issue that I'm seeing, right? And it can sound sometimes even robotic, but it's not. It's just their wiring and how they process emotions on the inside. Now, emotions are a part of us because we are made in God's image. God experiences emotions, and they're different than ours right now because they're perfect. He experiences emotions perfectly, but they are good. Emotions as a whole are good. How we experience and show those emotions, however, not so good usually. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that as we get into this topic. The other thing is that the fall, when sin entered into the world, it corrupted our emotions. And we're going to talk a little bit about that in this session also. And then finally, we're going to understand that lack of an emotional understanding can contribute to our lack of spiritual growth. And we don't want that. We don't want our emotions to prevent us from growing spiritually and understanding at a deeper level not only who God is and how He wired us, but how we conform our lives to God's image. So first, let's just talk very briefly about what influences us as emotional beings. First is our God wiring. It's our personality. I mentioned this a little bit. Some people process their emotions externally, some process internally. One's not good or bad unless you're not processing why you're doing it this way, right? But the God wiring itself isn't good or bad. It just is. And so we're going to talk, we have a whole session, a whole training on this topic because it's so big and important. Also, our family of origin impacts who you are, where you came from, who your parents were like. Were you raised by an individual or a single parent or a couple or step parents, or were you raised by your grandparents? Whatever it might be, that influences, as well as socioeconomic and ethnicity. All these things play a role in developing who you are as a unique individual. And then finally is our life experience. Now, our life experience can really be broken into two separate categories. First, who were we before Christ? Right? How did we respond to situations? How did we react? What did we do? But those life experiences, sometimes there are consequences that we experience later, but also it influences how we do other things. And then finally, our identity after Christ. Who were we? How do we process our life experiences after becoming a Christian, after accepting what Jesus did for us on the cross? So that's who we are and why understanding emotions is important. Now, I want to break it down a little bit from the biblical side. First, ask the question, does God really express emotions? Sure He does. And we see it throughout the Old and New Testament. Some examples from the Old Testament, Psalm 7:11 says, God is an honest judge. He's angry with the wicked every day. Isaiah 49:13, sing for joy, O heavens, rejoice, O earth, burst into song, O mountains. For the Lord has comforted His people and will have compassion on them in their suffering. You see, God doesn't just go, oh, well, they're suffering, I don't care. He has compassion on His people. We see it also in Genesis 6:6. And this is when He's talking about, when He's looking at humankind and just how sinful we had become. So the Lord was sorry He had ever made them and put them on the earth. It broke His heart. So it's not just He was like this spiteful or vengeful God. It broke His heart to see how really screwed up humankind was and is. And then this last verse is in Jeremiah 32:41. I will find joy doing good for them, and I will faithfully and wholeheartedly replant them in this land. God finds joy in helping his people. And there's sometimes, again, there's consequences, but God doesn't want that. He wants to love his people and care for his people. But we see it also in the New Testament. We see it in the Gospels, and that's what we're going to look at right now. We have Jesus, who is fully God, fully man, and we see his emotions. But we also get this view again of God the Father. In John 3:16, probably the most famous verse from the Bible, it's a lot of sporting events, says, "For this is how God loved the world. He gave his only Son so that whoever believes in him will not perish, but have eternal life." God so loved the world. Then the shortest verse in the New Testament, John 11:35, then Jesus wept. Here's the God of the universe. All right, here's the Son, the second person of the Trinity. Also fully man, experiencing a very strong emotion. Jesus wept because he was sad for what had happened to his friend, even though he knew what was going to happen. But again, this emotions are perfect and righteous and just, and Jesus wept for his friend. Mark 10:21, and talking about the rich young ruler who approached Jesus. This is always this kind of a sad one to me. It says, looking at this rich man, Jesus felt genuine love for him. Even though he knew, at this point at least, the rich young ruler wasn't going to follow him. He wasn't being mean. He wasn't being vengeful, right? He was just saying what the man had to do to be able to follow Jesus. And the man couldn't do it. And he felt genuine love for the rich young ruler. And then talking in Matthew 23:33, the last verse we'll look at is Jesus talking to the Pharisees. Snakes, sons of vipers, how will you escape the judgment of hell? There's this righteous anger that Jesus has for the Pharisees because of how they were treating God's people. But yet God's emotions are different than ours. I've mentioned the fall. I've mentioned sin, and even with the Pharisees is a perfect example. But when we look back in Genesis 2, we see the very first discussion or listing of an emotion. It's the last verse of Genesis 2 in Genesis 2:25. Now this is after all of creation is done, and Adam and Eve are created, and Adam is uncorrupted by sin, and Eve is uncorrupted by sin in Genesis 2. And this is what it says. Now the man and his wife were both naked, but they felt no shame. You see, sin hadn't entered the world, so their emotions are still perfect. They're in perfect unity with each other, perfect unity with God. There was no embarrassment or shame that they were feeling. Now, take that with what we see in Genesis 3, 9, and 10. This is their first interaction with God after the fall, after Adam ate the fruit and their eyes were opened. Then the Lord God called to the man, "Where are you?" And he, being Adam, replied, "I heard you walking in the garden, so I hid. I was afraid because I was naked." So the second emotion we see, first there's no shame, right? So there's this perfect unity of emotion. The first emotion that Adam shares is a negative emotion. And that was, he was afraid. Because now sin had taken this unity away, not only from he and God, but from he and Eve. So the first thing they did was they made clothes for themselves. You see, our emotions are of God, but they've been corrupted. And if we don't start to understand our emotions, we can't really begin to understand other people. And so what we really want to be able to do is go to God and ask for him to reveal to us our emotions, and not the way we normally see them, but how they begin to influence us. And so what I want you to be able to do between this and the next session is take some time, go to God, ask for him to give you understanding, give you the ability to be willing to look at yourself in a way that will allow you to see the sin that may be there that maybe you've either ignored, or maybe you just didn't see it. Maybe it's just been hidden from you. And we're going to take these next sessions and begin to understand not only emotional intelligence, but then also the spiritual and emotional strategies for starting to understand yourself in a healthier way. So thanks so much for joining. I think this is going to be a really powerful time for you. I pray that you're able to go to this and just seek God and how you can begin to change. Thanks.